Nidoshadzi nakbaga o. Madashi mia adashheads. Mabe sigids madzigidads nakbaga o. What I just said in our Hidatsa language was that, hello, good people. I carry my late grandmother Ruth's Hidatsa name, Woman Appears. And it's such an honor to be here with you today. And today is a good day. And I want to say thank you for welcoming not only myself, but my family, my community, and my tribal nation into this safe, brave, and sacred space. So madzigidads nakbaga o. Thank you, good people. I also want to share and acknowledge the Kumeyaay land that we stand on today. And I also want to acknowledge a young lady who gifted me with this eagle feather just over the weekend at the Title VI Indian Education powwow that they had, a celebration. And being that it is November, it has also been designated in years past of being National Native American Heritage Month. So I'm so very honored to be here with you today and to share a little bit about my family's story and our history. And I also want to acknowledge that I was born in 1977, and it wasn't until a year later, 1978, that the American Indian Religious Freedom Act was passed. And what that meant for my family was that we were then able to practice our religion freely and not behind closed doors and not underground. And so to stand here today and to greet you in our Hidatsa language, holding an eagle feather, is very powerful to me. So madzigidads, again, thank you. So in my work, I work to widen the road to justice through peace. And I want to share a little bit about my grandpa. My grandpa was a very intelligent person. He was a U.S. veteran. He served in the Army. And there he is pictured with my uncle, his firstborn child. Both of them had served in also our tribal council, so they were elected leaders for the Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara nation. But in the early 1950s, our community faced an unfortunate situation where 94% of our agricultural land was flooded, so that a predominantly white community in Bismarck, which is our state capital and located further downstream, could have flood control. So as a result, this deeply impacted our community of Elbow Woods, which is known as the Bottomlands. And when I hear our elders today speak of Elbow Woods, it sounds like Pleasantville, a land of plentiful crops, green cottonwood trees, centralized community, self-sufficient. We had our own hospital, our own school system. But after the flooding of 94% of our agricultural land, my grandpa changed the last name from Buffalo to a more English-sounding last name to provide for his family. And I'll never forget that day in high school when my mom showed me the legal court documents that read, name change for socioeconomic reasons. And so from that moment forward, just like many other times throughout my life, I felt that I needed to be the voice and bring the voice forward for not only my grandparents, but all of those who have gone before us and those that will come after us. And as a mom, I'm so very proud of my children today. And they're here in the crowd, and I want to acknowledge them for being with me every step of the way, and also my husband in this journey to widening the road to justice through peace. And so when I think of my grandpa, serving in the U.S. military, changing the last name to a more English-sounding last name to feed his family, I also think of my grandma, pictured on the upper with the blanket. I'm named after her, and I proudly carry her Hidatsa name, Woman Appears. She later served our community as a community health worker. And my grandma Ruth was a very, very humble lady. And during the time of socioeconomic struggles after the flooding of 94% of our agricultural land, and keep in mind the Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara Nation, we were historically agricultural people, and we were also known as the ambassadors of the plains. So we had a very peaceful, oriented mindset to us. But my grandma, during these hard times, she helped bring in extra income to our family through her beadwork. She had very beautiful beadwork. She was known for her beadwork, beautiful beadwork, and also for her beautiful star quilts. And the belt that I'm wearing today, my grandparents passed away 1 year before I was born. But I didn't get to meet them, but I carry them with me through the stories, the wisdom. And this belt that I'm wearing was designed by my grandpa, and it was meant for my mom. And my mom and I are about the same size. So what my mom's doing today to carry on my grandparents' legacy is having a fully beaded outfit made that was meant for her, but to make it for me, and then I will pass it on to my children as well. But so I wanted to make special recognition to my grandma because for what she did in trying to help in those hard times. And that's what women do. We hold our families together. And so I'm very honored to be here and to share a little bit about our story. We come from a matrilineal people. And so protecting others has always been a part of my job description. Being the older sister to 3 younger sisters, oftentimes I found myself trying to protect them. That's just the big sister in me. And so I saw at an early age things that needed to be fixed within our communities. I saw that we had a broken healthcare system. When I was 10 years old and my little sister, pictured right next to me in the purple shirt, she was 4 years old and she was misdiagnosed with a health condition that almost cost her her life. And then years later, our baby sister didn't survive a fatal car crash. A drunk driver hit her car head on. And so from that moment, again, being a big sister, I dug down deep and I called our Department of Transportation day after day until that road was widened, because the road where the crash happened was a very narrow road, and many people had passed away on that road from the time that I was a little girl till when we lost my baby sister. And I remember thinking, this road has not changed, but yet we continue to lose people on this road. And so I share this because everybody can make change from where they're at. And sometimes, unfortunately, it happens in times of tragedy. And as a public health professional, I always work to be proactive, find preventative solutions, work further upstream. But in times of tragedy, again, oftentimes we're forced to roll up our sleeves and get to work and make sure that nobody else has to suffer. So I'm proud to say that road today is widened. My daughter up there has been with me, as well as my family, throughout my campaigns, and so I have great hope in our youth. Our youth have been very instrumental in bringing change. Yes, our communities are hurting, but we also have our youth that are coming up, and we are united in love and in strength. So while I mentioned some of the work that I did that led me down a path of advocacy and policy change, I ran for office in 2016 and I didn't win. I ran for insurance commissioner. I learned a lot. I was so inspired by the first-time voters that came out, especially within my immediate family. And so I stayed involved. I found myself once again in the trenches, helping lead a search for a young Indigenous mother who was 8 months along in her pregnancy in Fargo. Her name was Savannah Greywind. She was murdered for her unborn child. From that experience, again, I saw gaps within our system that needed to be addressed. We formed a task force. I ended up running again for office in 2018, and this time I won. And so a lot of the bills, the bulk of the bills that I carried with me to the state capitol came from the local task force that focused on missing and murdered Indigenous women. And I'm proud to say that all of those bills that the task force gave me are now passed into law as of August 1st. Some of these bills include, of course, safer and stronger communities, data collection of missing people, highlighting tribal affiliation, law enforcement training regarding missing Indigenous people, a resolution urging Congress to pass Savannah's Act, which is still held up in the US Senate, a comprehensive study examining missing and murdered Indigenous people and human trafficking cases, human trafficking prevention and awareness training for schools and hotels, and the last one that was for the Indigenous youth. And so that's again why it's so significant that I stand here before you with this eagle feather that was just gifted to me last week. The last bill that became law with an emergency clause in the springtime in time for graduations was that so high school students could wear eagle feathers and eagle plumes at their high school graduations with no problems. It's sad to say that we needed to enact a law in 2019 for Native American students to freely wear eagle feathers and eagle plumes during a celebration time such as high school graduation. We know, sadly, that our American Indian youth suffer from high rates of suicide, and not everyone graduates from high school. So again, it's finding another way to lift each other up, because we are what our ancestors prayed for, and our existence truly is our resistance. You know, the fact that I'm standing here today in front of you, you know, after policy that was introduced from the beginning of time within our beautiful country, within American soil, or what is referred to as present-day United States of America. We are still here and we're thriving. We are good people, and we are meant to help bridge each other, build bridges in our communities. And so I'm so honored to be here with you. And there's so much more to share, but I just want to encourage you with these final closing thoughts of how can we widen the road for others? How can we widen the road to justice for one another? Whether it's reaching out to someone who looks different from us and asking a question, or hey, can we have lunch together? How can we build a stronger future together? And I know that sounds cliche, but it's something that's so simple, but oftentimes gets overlooked, is just that making that small connection with one another and realizing that we are all on the same team, and that is a team of humanity. So I want to leave you again with another message of love, Anista. I had the opportunity of being mentored by an Arikara elder from a patriarchal society, and he would always speak of love, Anista. And the Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara, the Mandan and Hidatsa were historically lived amongst each other, and the Arikara came up from the south later. And so there were some different dynamics, group dynamics there with the different societies, from a matriarchal society meshing with a patriarchal society. And so I'm so thankful for the mentors that I have and the message of love. Love one another, despite our differences, despite our physical differences. Love one another. Anista. So Madzigirad's good people. Thank you.